Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card uses double dies, so I'm using two different dies here. The first is this Simon Says Stamp Petite Butterfly set. It has 3 butterflies, and then this Ashby Corner by Poppy Stamps. I'm going to start off with my background. I have 3 different colors of distress ink. I have Wild Honey, Ripe Persimmon, and Picked Raspberry. I'm just going to put all 3 of these down on my craft mat. And it's okay if you overlap them a little bit. And then I'm going to take some water and spritz it, and I'm going to make sure I put a lot of water on here so you can see how many spritzes I'm actually putting on here. You want the ink to be movable and blendable pretty easily when you put your paper down. So I'm going to take some Strathmore watercolor paper and I'm going to lay it right on top. And if it's not moving very well, it should move very easily. If it's not, then you don't have enough water. So I'm going to kind of do little baby circles to get it all blended together. I got some on my finger. I'm not sure why I needed to wipe it off at that moment because I'm just about to get some more on. But anyway, so you want to lift it up sideways so that the colors don't blend too much together because it'll be a little drippy when you pick it up. I'm going to grab a baby wipe and just wipe up the pooling water because I just want it to dry faster. I'm not too worried about the edge because it's not going to show. Just the middle is going to show in my card. So I'm going to put that off to the side and let it dry naturally. Whenever I can, I try to let my watercolor dry naturally instead of using a heat tool. It just eliminates a little bit more of the warping. Here's the die I'm going to be using, and it's a very intricate flower die. You can use any intricate die for this technique. This particular die fits really nicely in the corner of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 sheet of cardstock, which is what this is. It's Nina Solar White. You can also put it in the upper corner to make a nice card. You could use this as a card base, maybe put a sentiment in the middle, just another use for this die. But anyway, so I'm going to run that side through my Big Shot, and now I'll have 2 of these. I wanted to show you how I pop these little pieces out. I have a paper piercer that I just slide in between my fingers while I hold the cardstock up, and all the pieces just fall right out. I did want to share with you how I cut these. So when I used the regular sandwich with my die, it did not cut all the way through. So the next thing I did was I took my precision plate and I put the die, of course, with the paper in the middle between the precision plate and the acrylic plate, and that worked great. And I also tried using the normal sandwich in addition to 2 Mylar shims, and that also worked great. So either way, we'll cut this nice intricate die. So this is some wood grain cardstock. I love this. Simon Says Stamp sells it, and there's some other companies that sell it as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this center point. This again is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. My center point is going to be 2 1/8, so I'm just going to mark that with my pencil. And I'm going to use my T-square. I love this tool. It's so easy to draw straight lines. I'm going to put it right on that mark I just made down the center and draw my line. And this is so that I can line up my butterflies. Butterflies are really easy to line up because they have a center point at the top and the bottom. So you just line all that up together. Once I get them all figured out, I'm going to take my surgical tape and tape them into place just to make sure that I don't move because I really want them to be exactly on that line. So I'll run that through my Big Shot, and when I come back I'll pull them out, and even though I ran my surgical tape through the Big Shot, it still came off pretty easily off of this wood grain cardstock. And you can use those butterflies on another card because they do have the wood grain on them. So I'm just going to take a pencil eraser and erase my lines. And now I'm ready to go. So I am going to turn this card over. So now that I've got the non-wood grain side, and then I'm going to flip my die over as well because there is a good side, like a top side and a bottom side. And I'm going to arrange my die cuts to show through the butterfly such that as many whole flowers will show as possible. So I didn't want it to be a bunch of random lines that show through the butterfly. I wanted you to be able to see that they were actually flowers. So that's how I arranged the die cuts here. So I'm taking some surgical tape and I'm taping these on the back, and I see that they're hanging off and it's not a big deal. I've got an extra flower over here on the right that I can reuse in that extra hole on the right side of my butterfly. So I'm just going to snip that off with my scissor. I'll secure the ends down with that surgical tape, and then I'll take that extra piece which has a nice pretty small flower on it, and I'll place it and put the surgical tape on that as well. Now what I really like about this surgical tape is that it's really easy to place on and take off if you need to, so it's kind of repositionable. and it really sticks well, so it's not coming off. I only needed 2 die cuts to cover all 3 of these butterflies. So I'm just going to finish up these last 2 here using the same technique. I'm just going to trim them off. It's really easy to trim off the edges and secure them on the side. You do want to make sure that you have tape all the way around the butterfly to make sure you don't have any gaps where it might hang off, because I am going to be popping this up on the card base. So here's my final piece. I've got them all covered and trimmed out. I really like the way this turned out. Now I'm going to work on my sentiment. I'm using this Bejeweled set by Altenew. I use these sentiments a lot. They're just the perfect size sentiment to just put on a card without being too distracting. So I'm going to take the hello and I'm going to position it right in the corner, so all I have to do is trim the right and the bottom side. And I'm going to heat emboss this with some white embossing powder. And then I decided it's so small, I'm just going to use a scissor. So I grabbed my scissor and I did one side, and then I decided, you can see here, I'm going to debate this. Should I cut it? Should I not cut it? I think I want to cut it, but no, let's not take any chances. So I went ahead and put it through the paper trimmer. Now my camera turned off. This is kind of an afterthought, to add some Perfect Pearl spray. So to create this, I filled it up to about that line with water, this little mini mister. Here's my Perfect Pearls, and so I open this up, and what I do is I just grab a paintbrush and I just pick up whatever will fit on the edge of my paintbrush, and then I put that in the mini mister with the water, shake it up, and then I'm ready to go. And it lasts a pretty long time, so I just spritzed it on there. You can see how shimmery it is. It just adds a nice little detailed touch to the card. So I'm going to figure out where I want my butterflies to lay on this watercolor panel, and then I'll take a pencil and mark the edges, and I'll trim that off with my trimmer. So now I'm just making sure I cut it well, and then I'll flip over my butterfly panel and use some Scotch foam tape. And I'm going to cover this with a lot of tape because I want to make sure that it doesn't sag in any of the areas, especially where the butterflies are. So I'm going to make sure I cover all of the edges around the butterflies. So I'll take the release tape off, and then I'm going to put it on my watercolor panel. And so, you know, when I cut it, I kind of estimated where I should cut it. I cut it just a little bit inside those pencil lines. So I knew it wasn't going to come out exactly perfect because I might not position it in exactly the same way. So when you flip it over, you can see I did make it a little lower than I originally intended. And so because of that, it's pretty close to the edge. On the sides too, I didn't cut it too far in, and so when you turn it to the side, you can see a little bit of that watercolor panel, and I really didn't like that. So this is really easy to fix. You can cut just the back panel by inserting one blade of your scissor in between the 2 panels, and just make sure you don't open your scissor too wide. I had the same problem on the bottom, so I'm going to do that same exact cutting of the back panel. So just see how I'm not really moving the right blade of my scissor. Just keep it inside that groove, and then you should be able to cut straight across without any problem. For my card base, I'm using a Hero Arts black note card, which comes scored and folded. I love these because you can have a black mat on the back, and you don't have to worry about adding another white panel on the inside to write your message. So I'm going to cover this with ATG tape runner, and I'll use my MISTI to line it up. So I put my black panel, or my black base, in the corner, and then I just line it up according to the left edge and press it down. It always comes out perfect every time. So then I'm going to take my sentiment, and I'm going to use some foam adhesive, just some Stampin' Up! Dimensional. I just cut it in half, and I'll place it in the lower right hand corner. I wanted to have a sentiment on here, but I didn't want it to be I didn't want it to stand out too much. I really wanted my butterflies to be the focal point, so I just stuck it in the lower right hand corner. And that's the card for today. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.